Doctor was standing in the research lab when the ship shook so hard that she fell to the floor. Alarms screamed through every corridor. Red lights flashed on the walls. She heard her crew members shouting, their voices full of fear. "Engine failure," someone yelled. "We have lost main power." Pushed herself up and ran toward the bridge. Her thin legs moved as fast as they could carry her. The people were not built for running. They were tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large eyes that saw well in low light. They were scientists and thinkers, not warriors or survivors. When she reached the bridge, Commander was already there. His face was tight with worry. The main screen showed only darkness. Stars drifted slowly past the windows, which meant they were spinning without control. "What happened?" demanded. "The primary engine core cracked," said. His voice was calm, but she could see fear in his eyes. "We have no thrust. Life support is running on backup power, but it will not last more than 2 days." Felt her heart sink. They were far from home, far from any station or trade route. They had come to this remote area of space to study an unusual nebula. The swirling cloud of gas and energy was beautiful but dangerous, and now they were trapped near it. "Send a distress signal," she ordered. "I already did," said the ship's engineer. He was younger than the others, with darker blue skin and a scar across his cheek from an old accident. "But we are very far from space. Even if someone hears us, it could take days for help to arrive, maybe longer." Looked at the crew around her. There were 12 of them on the research vessel Silent Wing, 12 scientists and engineers who had come to study the stars. Now they might die among them. "We wait," she said quietly. "We conserve power, we hope." The hours passed slowly. The ship was cold because they had reduced heating to save energy. The crew wrapped themselves in thermal blankets and tried to stay calm. Some worked on repairs, but the damage was too great. The engine was destroyed. They could not fix it with the tools they had. Sat alone in her quarters and thought about her family back home. She had a daughter who was still young. She had promised to return in 3 months. Now she wondered if she would ever see her again. Then 3 hours after the explosion, something happened. Doctor's voice came through the communication system. "Come to the bridge, now." She ran again, her tired body protesting. When she arrived, the crew was staring at the sensor screen. A dot of light was moving toward them, moving fast. "A ship?" asked, her voice filled with hope. "Yes," said, but his tone was strange, not happy, not relieved. He sounded afraid. "What is wrong?" "Someone heard our distress call. Help is coming." Turned to face her. His large eyes were wide. "The ship's signal identifies it as a warship, Doctor, a human warship." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew about humans. Everyone in the galaxy knew about humans. Humans came from a world called Earth. It was a death world, a planet so dangerous that most species would die there within hours. The gravity was crushing. The weather was violent. Predators roamed every continent and swam in every ocean. And somehow, humans had not only survived there but had grown strong. They were shorter than but much more solid. Their bodies were thick with muscle. Their bones were dense. They could run for hours without stopping. They could survive injuries that would kill any other species. They healed quickly. They adapted to almost any environment. And they were aggressive. Had heard stories about human wars. The humans had fought each other for thousands of years before reaching the stars. They had weapons that could destroy cities. They had soldiers who would fight to the death rather than surrender. Most species in the galaxy stayed away from humans. They were too unpredictable, too dangerous. "Maybe they will not stop," Commander said hopefully. "Maybe they will pass by." But even as he spoke, the communication system crackled to life. "Research vessel, this is Captain Park Sung of the human warship Resolve. We received your distress signal. We are coming to assist. Please respond." The voice was clear and strong. It spoke in standard galactic language, but the accent was strange. Human. Looked at her crew. They were all waiting for her decision. She was the mission leader. The choice was hers. If we do not answer, they might leave, whispered. We could wait for a rescue ship. Our backup power will fail in 2 days, reminded him. Rescue ships could take a week to reach us. Closed her eyes. She thought about her daughter again. She thought about the 11 other lives depending on her. Answer them, she said. The communication officer, a young female named, opened the channel with shaking hands. Human vessel resolve, this is the research ship Silent Wing. We accept your offer of assistance. Our main engine has failed. We have no power for thrust. There was a brief pause. Then Captain Park's voice returned. Understood, Silent Wing. We will reach your position in approximately 40 minutes. Prepare for docking. We are bringing engineers and medical personnel. Hold on. Help is coming. The channel closed. Stood in silence. Around her, the crew exchanged nervous glances. In 40 minutes, humans would board their ship. Humans, the warriors, the species that frightened half the galaxy. What do we do? Asked. Her voice was small. We prepare to meet them, said. She tried to sound calm. She tried to sound brave. They offered help. We will accept it. Perhaps the stories about humans are exaggerated. Commander shook his head slowly. And if they are not? Had no answer for that question. She could only wait and hope that she had not just invited death onto her ship. The minutes passed like hours. The crew watched the sensors as the human warship grew closer. It was much larger than the Silent Wing. Weapons were visible on its hull. It was built for war. And it was coming straight for them. When the Resolve finally appeared through the bridge windows, felt her breath catch in her throat. The ship was dark gray, almost black. It moved through space like a predator, silent and sure. A message appeared on their screen. The humans were requesting permission to dock. The first human through the airlock was not what expected. She had imagined a giant, a monster covered in armor, carrying weapons, with cold eyes and a cruel face. The stories had painted humans as terrifying creatures. Instead, she saw a male of average height with dark hair cut short. He wore a simple gray uniform with tools hanging from his belt. His face was calm, even friendly. He looked around the corridor with quick, curious eyes. Hello, he said. I am Chief Engineer Oh Min. My team is here to help with repairs. Behind him came 5 more humans. They carried equipment cases and moved with easy confidence. None of them wore protective suits. None of them seemed worried about breathing air or touching surfaces. Commander stepped forward. You are not wearing hazard protection, he said, his voice suspicious. Min smiled. It was a strange expression, did not smile like that. We checked your atmosphere readings before boarding. The air is safe for us. Humans can adapt to many environments. Remembered the stories. Death World survivors. Of course they could breathe foreign air without fear. Thank you for coming, she said carefully. I am Dr. Mission Leader. Min nodded politely. Captain Park sends his greetings. He is coordinating from the Resolve. Now can someone show us your engine room? We need to see the damage. Stepped forward. His body was stiff with tension, but his voice was steady. I am the chief engineer. Follow me. As the humans walked through the corridors of the Silent Wing, noticed how they moved. They were not slow and careful like. They walked fast. Their steps were heavy. They looked at everything, taking in details quickly. One human female kept making notes on a small device. In the engine room, Min examined the destroyed core. He moved around it quickly, touching parts, looking at readings, talking to his team in their own language. Did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. They were already working on solutions. This is bad damage, Min finally said in Galactic Standard. But not impossible. We can repair your life support and secondary systems within a few hours. The main engine will take longer, maybe a full day. A day, said in surprise. Our own engineers estimated weeks for such repairs. Min shrugged. It was a casual gesture that seemed strange given the situation. We have different methods, and we brought spare parts that can be modified to fit your systems. He immediately began giving orders to his team. They started working without rest, without complaint. They moved fast, their hands quick and sure, watched them with growing amazement. Meanwhile, another group of humans came through the airlock. These wore white uniforms with red markings. Medical team, their leader announced. She was a small female with short black hair and sharp eyes. I am medical officer. We are here to check your crew for injuries. Commander blocked her path. We do not need human medicine. Our own medical systems are functioning. Did not seem bothered by his hostility. Your medical systems may be working, but your power is limited. We can provide treatment on the Resolve where resources are plentiful. It is standard procedure for rescue operations. Was about to refuse politely when suddenly cried out. The young communication officer had been standing near the wall, and now she collapsed to the floor. Her body was shaking. Ran to her side. Was already there. She pulled out a small device and scans body. Her expression became serious. Internal bleeding, she said quickly. From the original explosion, she has been hiding her pain. The injury is getting worse. She needs surgery now. No, Commander said firmly. We will not let humans cut open one of our people. Looked at him directly. Her eyes were hard. If she does not receive surgery within the next 2 hours, she will die. Your medical bay does not have enough power for the procedure. The Resolve does. Looked down at, the young woman's eyes were closed. Her breathing was weak. She was just a student, only on her second research mission. She had her whole life ahead of her. Do it, said. Doctor, this is a mistake, protested. She is my responsibility, said sharply, and I will not let her die because of fear. She looked at, save her. Nodded once. 2 humans carefully lifted onto a stretcher and carried her toward the airlock. Turned back to. You can come and watch the surgery if you want. We have nothing to hide. Hesitated, then followed. She needed to see what the humans would do to one of her people. The inside of the Resolve was different from any ship had seen before. It was larger, with higher ceilings and wider corridors. Everything was built for humans, for their heavy bodies and quick movements. The walls were covered with screens showing data and images. Crew members moved past her, nodding politely but not stopping. The medical bay was impressive. It was filled with equipment that did not recognize. Lights blinked on machines. The air was warm and clean. They placed on a table that adjusted automatically to her body shape, washed her hands and put on gloves. Other medical staff prepared instruments. Biology is different from human biology, explained as she worked. But we have studied many species. The basic principles are similar. Find the damage, stop the bleeding, repair the tissue. Watched as operated. The human's hands were incredibly steady. She worked fast but carefully. Every movement had purpose. Every cut was precise. An hour later, stepped back from the table. The surgery is complete. The bleeding has stopped. She will need rest, but she will recover fully. Felt tears forming in her eyes. Did not cry like humans, but they did feel relief. Thank you, she whispered. Removed her gloves and smiled. It was a warm expression. This is what we do. No payment needed. No favor owed. We help because we can. Back on the silent wing, was experiencing his own revelation. He had worked beside the human engineers for hours. They had not stopped moving the entire time. They did not take breaks. They did not complain about the cold or the difficult conditions. How do you keep going? He finally asked me. The human looked up from his work. Sweat covered his forehead, but his eyes were still alert. What do you mean? You have been working for 5 hours without rest. Would need to stop by now. We would need food and sleep. Min laughed softly. Humans are built for endurance. Our ancestors used to chase prey for days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. We can push ourselves for a long time when we need to. Stared at him, chase prey for days. What kind of world produced such creatures? Does that frighten you? Min asked. He did not seem offended, just curious. Thought about it. A few hours ago he would have said yes. Now he was not sure. These humans were working themselves to exhaustion to help strangers. That did not seem frightening. That seemed noble. I do not know, he admitted honestly. Min nodded. Good answer. Fear of the unknown is natural, but we are not your enemy's engineer. We are just people who heard a call for help and answered. As if to prove his point, he returned to work. His hands moved quickly, reconnecting circuits, replacing damaged parts. He treated the ship with respect, careful not to damage anything further. Picked up his own tools and worked beside him. For the first time since the humans arrived, he did not feel afraid. On the bridge, returned to find Commander waiting for her. His expression was conflicted. They saved, she told him. Said nothing for a long moment. Then he sighed. Perhaps I was wrong about them. Before could respond, an alarm sounded. Red lights flashed across the bridge. What is happening? She demanded. The sensor officer looked at his screen with wide eyes. 3 ships just appeared at the edge of sensor range. They are approaching fast. Rescue ships? Asked hopefully. The officer shook his head slowly. His face was pale. No, Commander. The signal identifies them as raiders. The bridge went silent. Everyone knew about the pirates who preyed on damaged ships, slavers and thieves who showed no mercy. And now 3 of their ships were heading straight for the silent wing. The ships moved through space like hungry predators. They were smaller than the Resolve but built for speed and aggression. Their hulls were painted black and red, decorated with symbols that marked their kills. On the bridge of the silent wing, panic spread through the crew. They had heard stories about the raiders attacked damaged vessels, killed the crews, and sold the cargo. Sometimes they took prisoners. Those prisoners were never seen again. We cannot fight, Commander said. His voice shook. We have no weapons. Our shields are down. Doctor gripped the edge of her command chair. Her mind was racing. They were trapped. The silent wing could not run. The Resolve was a warship, but could one human ship fight against 3 raiders? The communication system crackled. A harsh voice filled the bridge. Attention, damaged vessel. This is captain of the raiding fleet. You have something we want. Surrender your ship, your cargo, and your research data. If you cooperate, we might let some of you live. Felt cold fear wash over her. She looked at her crew. 12 lives. 12 scientists who had done nothing wrong except be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Before she could respond, another voice cut through the channel. Vessels, this is Captain Park Sung of the human warship Resolve. The silent wing and her crew are under our protection. Leave this area immediately. There was silence for a moment, then Captain laughed. It was an ugly sound full of contempt. 1 human ship against 3 raiders. You are either brave or stupid human, perhaps both. I am giving you one warning, Captain Park said. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. Turn around and leave. This is not a negotiation. Laughed again. Kill the human ship first, then we take the communication channel closed. On the silent wing's bridge, everyone stared at the sensor screen. The 3 ships were accelerating. They were spreading out, moving to surround the Resolve. They will destroy the humans, whispered, and then they will come for us. Watched helplessly. The human ship that had come to save them was about to die because of that decision. Then the battle began. The Resolve moved first. It should not have been possible for a ship that size to move so fast, but it did. The warship surged forward like a hunting animal, straight toward the nearest raider. What are they doing? Asked. He had come to the bridge when the alarm sounded. They are charging directly at the enemy. The ship fired first. Bright energy bolts shot through space toward the human vessel. The Resolve did not try to dodge. Instead, its shields flared bright blue as the shots were absorbed. Then the Resolve fired back. Had never seen weapons like this before. Twin beams of white light cut through the darkness. They struck the ship with terrible accuracy. The Raiders' shields flickered and failed. A second later, another shot hit the ship's engines. The Raider went dark, spinning helplessly without power. One ship disabled in seconds. The other two Raiders broke formation. They were clearly not expecting this. They had thought the human ship would be easy prey. They were wrong. The Resolve turned with impossible speed. On its bridge, Lieutenant Jinho sat at the weapons station. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. His eyes never left the targeting screen. "Second target locked," he reported to Captain Park. "Fire," the captain said calmly. More beams lanced out. The second ship tried to dodge, but the human weapons were too fast. Shots hit the Raiders' weapon systems, then its engines. The ship was crippled within moments. Captain's voice came through the communication system again. This time, there was no laughter in his tone. "Stop, we surrender. We did not know humans protected this area." Captain Park leaned back in his command chair. "You attacked a ship under our protection. You threatened innocent people." "Please," said, "we will leave. We will never return, just let us go." There was a long pause. On the silent wing, they held their breath. They expected the humans to destroy the remaining ship. That is what would do. That is what most species would do. "Leave," Captain Park said finally. "Take your disabled ships and go. If you ever attack another vessel in this region, we will not show mercy again." The third Raider moved quickly to the two disabled ships. It connected towing cables and began pulling them away. Within minutes, all three Raiders were moving toward the edge of the system, fleeing as fast as they could. The battle was over. On the silent wing, no one spoke for a long time. They had just witnessed something that should have been impossible. One human warship had defeated three Raiders in less than 5 minutes. "They let them go," Commander finally said. His voice was filled with disbelief. "The humans could have destroyed them, but they let them go." Nodded slowly. She was still trying to understand what she had seen. The humans were powerful enough to kill without effort, but they chose not to. They disabled enemy ships instead of destroying them. They gave mercy to those who did not deserve it. The communication system activated. Captain Park's voice was calm, as if nothing unusual had happened. "Doctor, are you and your crew safe?" "Yes," she managed to say. "We are safe, thank you, Captain." "Good. Our engineers report that repairs on your ship are almost complete. However, we have a new problem. Your sensor officer should be detecting it now." Looked at the sensor screen. What she saw made her hearts freeze. The nebula they had come to study was changing. The swirling clouds of gas were moving faster. Bright flashes of energy were appearing deep within the cloud. "What is happening?" she asked. "The nebula is becoming unstable," Captain Park explained. "According to your own research data, it is going to collapse and release a massive energy burst. Our calculations show this will happen within 6 hours." Remembered the purpose of their mission. They had come to study this exact possibility. The nebula had been showing signs of instability for months, but the collapse was supposed to be weeks away, maybe longer. "The explosion we suffered must have released energy particles into the nebula," said, his voice horrified. "We accelerated the collapse." 6 hours, repeated. "Our engines are still not working. We cannot escape." Captain Park spoke again. "The Resolve will tow your vessel to safety. Our engines are strong enough to pull both ships beyond the danger zone." "That is a significant strain on your systems," said. He understood engineering well enough to know the risks. If something goes wrong, both ships could be destroyed. "Yes," Captain Park agreed. There was no hesitation in his voice. but we will not leave you behind. Closed her eyes. First the humans had come to repair her ship. Then they had saved her crew from raiders. Now they were risking their own lives to pull the silent wing to safety. Why? She asked quietly. Why do you help us? We are strangers. We are not even the same species. There is nothing we can give you in return. Captain Park was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. Humans have a saying, Doctor. We believe that the true measure of a people is how they treat those who cannot help themselves. You were drifting in deep space. You called for help. We answered. That is all the reason we need. Felt something shift inside her. For years, she had feared humans. For years, she had believed the stories about death and warriors and monsters from a violent planet. Now she realized those stories were incomplete. Yes, humans were powerful. Yes, they came from a dangerous world. Yes, they could fight with terrible skill. But they also protected strangers. They showed mercy to enemies. They risked everything to save people they had never met. Maybe humans were not monsters after all. Maybe they were something else entirely. Thank you, Captain, she said. We accept your help. Then prepare for towing, Park replied. We begin in 20 minutes. The next 6 hours will be difficult, but we will get through this together. The communication channel closed. Looked at her crew. She saw fear in their eyes, but also something new, something that looked like hope. You heard the captain, she said firmly. Prepare the ship for towing. We have work to do. The connection between the two ships was established with a loud clang that echoed through the silent wing. Heavy cables stretched from the Resolve to the vessel, thick strands of reinforced metal that would hold them together through whatever came next. On the bridge of the human warship, Captain Park Sung stood at the center console. His crew worked around him with quiet efficiency. They knew the risks. They knew that towing a damaged ship away from an unstable nebula could kill them all. None of them complained. Engines at full power, the navigation officer reported. Begin towing, Captain Park ordered. The Resolve's engines roared to life. The great warship began to move, pulling the silent wing behind it. The acceleration was slow at first, careful. Both ships creaked and groaned as they started their journey toward safety. On the silent wing, stood in the engine room with Chief Engineer Oh Min. The human was covered in sweat and dirt from hours of repair work. His eyes were red from exhaustion, but he was still moving, still checking systems, still making sure everything would hold together. Your engines are taking serious strain, said, watching the readings on his screen. This much power for this long could cause failures. Min nodded. Possible, but we have backup systems and we have good engineers. He smiled tiredly. Humans are stubborn. We do not give up easily. When did you last sleep? Asked. The human thought about it. Maybe 20 hours ago, maybe longer. I will sleep when this is over. Stared at him. 20 hours of constant work. No rest. No breaks. And the human was still functioning, still thinking clearly, still solving problems. Your species is remarkable, said quietly. Min laughed. It was a tired sound, but genuine. We are just doing what needs to be done. That is not remarkable. That is normal for us. But it was not normal for. Knew that his own people would have collapsed long ago. They needed regular rest periods. They could not push their bodies like this. Watching the humans work made him realize how different they truly were. Meanwhile, Doctor had gone to the medical bay on the Resolve to check on. The young was awake now, sitting up in her bed. The human medic was checking her readings. She is recovering well, reported. The surgery was successful. She will need to rest for a few more days, but there will be no lasting damage. Looked at with wide eyes. Is it true? Humans saved my life. Yes, said gently. They have saved all of us. Turned to look at. The human female was small compared to, but her presence filled the room with calm confidence. Thank you, whispered. Reached out and touched hands softly. You are welcome. Now rest. We still have a dangerous journey ahead. Followed out of the medical bay, they walked through the corridors of the Resolve, passing human crew members who nodded politely. None of them seemed afraid or stressed, despite the situation. "May I ask you something?" said. "Of course." "Why do your people risk so much for strangers? You fought raiders for us. Now you are straining your ship to save us. Your captain said you do this because we needed help, but that cannot be the only reason." Stopped walking. She turned to face directly. Her dark eyes were thoughtful. "Humans have a complicated history," she said slowly. "We fought each other for thousands of years. We caused great suffering to our own kind. We nearly destroyed ourselves many times." Nodded. She had heard these stories. They were part of why other species feared humans. "But we also learned from that history," continued. "We learned that violence without purpose is empty. We learned that true strength is not about destroying others. It is about protecting them." She paused. "When we finally reached the stars, we made a choice. We decided that we would not bring our worst nature into the galaxy. We would bring our best." "Your best?" Smiled. "Compassion, determination, the willingness to help those in need even at cost to ourselves. These things exist in humanity too. Perhaps they are the most important parts of us." Before could respond, the ship shook violently. Alarms began to sound. "All hands, this is the captain." Park Sung's voice came through the communication system. "The nebula is collapsing faster than expected. We are experiencing energy surges. All personnel brace for impact." Grabbed the wall as the ship shook again. Through a nearby window she could see the nebula. It was beautiful and terrifying. Colors swirled within the cloud, bright oranges and deep purples mixing together. Lightning cracked through the gas, bolts of pure energy shooting in all directions. They were still too close. The energy burst, when it came, would destroy both ships if they did not reach minimum safe distance. On the bridge of the Resolve, Captain Park watched the sensor readings with steady eyes. The nebula was accelerating its collapse. They had less time than expected. "How long until we reach the safe zone?" he asked. "At current speed, approximately 90 minutes, the navigation officer reported. "How long until the nebula collapses?" "Approximately 70 minutes. The math was simple and terrible. They would not make it in time. "Increase engine power to 120%, Park ordered. His chief engineer's voice came through the communication system. "Captain, that level of output could damage the engines permanently." "I understand, do it anyway." The engines roared louder, the ship shook. Everyone on board felt the increased strain, but they also moved faster. Still, it might not be enough. The next hour was the longest of life. She returned to the silent wing and sat on the bridge, watching the sensor readings. The nebula was collapsing. The safe zone was approaching. It was a race they might lose. Energy surges hit both ships repeatedly. Each impact caused damage. Lights flickered. Systems failed and were quickly repaired. The human engineers worked without pause, moving from crisis to crisis, fixing problems faster than they appeared. Worked beside them. He pushed his body harder than he ever had before. His muscles ached. His eyes burned. But he did not stop. If the humans could keep going, so could he. "Hull breach on deck 4, someone shouted. Min and 2 other humans ran toward the breach. Followed. They reached the damaged section and found a crack in the wall where an energy surge had penetrated the shields. Air was leaking out. The temperature was dropping rapidly. "Emergency patch," Min ordered. He grabbed a kit from the wall and began applying sealant to the crack. His hands moved with incredible speed. But the cold was affecting him. Even humans had limits. His fingers began to slow. His breath came out in white clouds. Took the sealant from his hands. "I will finish," he said. "Your fingers are freezing." Min looked at him with surprise, then nodded gratefully. Completed the patch while the humans warmed their hands. When he was done, the breach was sealed. "Good work," Min said. "You learned fast." "I had good teachers," replied. In the medical bay was treating injured crew members from both ships. A human engineer had been burned by an electrical discharge. A scientist had fallen during a ship shake and broken her arm. Treated them both with the same care and attention. Watched from her bed, she saw how the human medic moved between patients, never showing preference, never hesitating. Human or it did not matter. Everyone received help. 50 minutes passed, then 60. The nebula was moments from collapse. "Safe zone in 10 minutes, the navigation officer announced. "We are not going to make it," someone whispered. Captain Park stood from his command chair. "All hands," he said into the communication system, "prepare for emergency power redistribution. We are going to push the engines to maximum." "Captain, that could destroy them completely," the chief engineer warned. "Then we will drift to safety on momentum, but we will be outside the blast radius. Do it." Every light on both ships went dark. Heating systems shut down. Life support dropped to minimum levels. All power, every bit of energy the ships could generate, was fed into the engines. The Resolve surged forward one final time. The cold hit immediately. Could see her breath in front of her face. The crew huddled together for warmth. The temperature was dropping fast. But the humans did not seem to notice. On the bridge of the Resolve, Captain Park stood in the darkness, watching the distance counter tick down. His crew sat at their stations, silent and determined. They were not just risking their ship. They were suffering alongside the people they were trying to save. The nebula collapsed. A wave of brilliant light expanded outward from where the cloud had been. Pure energy, powerful enough to destroy any ship it touched. But the two vessels were no longer there. They had crossed into the safe zone just moments before. The energy wave passed behind them, lighting up the darkness with colors more beautiful than anything had ever seen. It was the death of a nebula, and it was magnificent. And they had survived it. The emergency lights flickered back to life. Heat slowly returned to both ships. Systems that had been pushed to their limits began to recover. They were damaged, exhausted, but alive. On the bridge of the Silent Wing, the crew sat in stunned silence. The energy wave from the collapsed nebula still glowed behind them, a slowly fatting curtain of light. They had escaped death by seconds. Doctor finally let out the breath she had been holding. Around her, crew members began to cry with relief. They hugged each other. They whispered thanks to whatever powers had saved them. But knew exactly what had saved them. Not luck, not fate, humans. The communication system activated. Captain Park's voice filled the bridge, steady as always. "Doctor, the danger has passed. Both ships have sustained damage, but we are safe. How is your crew?" "We are alive," she said, her voice cracked with emotion. "We are all alive because of you." "I am glad. My engineers will continue repairs on your vessel. With full power available now, we should have your main engine working within a few hours. Then you can return home." Home had not dared to hope she would see home again. Now that hope was real. "Captain Park, I would like to meet with you. In person. There are things I need to say that should not be said through a communication system." "Of course, I will come to your ship." 20 minutes later, Captain Park Sung stepped through the airlock onto the Silent Wing. Was there to greet him, along with Commander and. She had expected a tall man, given his authority. Instead, Park was of average human height, with graying hair at his temples and calm brown eyes. His face showed the exhaustion of the past hours, but his bearing was straight and dignified. "Doctor," he said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. She took his hand carefully. It was warm and strong, roughened by years of work. This was the hand of a man who had fought raiders, pushed his ship beyond its limits, and risked everything to save strangers. "Captain Park, I do not have words adequate to thank you," she said. Your people saved my life. You saved the lives of everyone on this ship. You asked for nothing in return." Park smiled gently. "We asked for nothing because nothing was needed. Helping others is not a transaction. It is simply what we do." Commander stepped forward. His face was serious, but his earlier hostility was gone. "Captain, I must apologize to you," he said stiffly. "When your ship first arrived, I was afraid. I did not trust your people. I almost refused your help." "Fear of the unknown is natural," Park said. "Your species had heard stories about humans. Many of those stories focus on our capacity for violence, but stories rarely tell the whole truth." "No," agreed, "they do not." He extended his own hand. "I was wrong about your people. I hope you will forgive my rudeness." Park took his hand without hesitation. "There is nothing to forgive. You were protecting your crew. That is honorable." Spoke next. He had worked beside the human engineers for hours. He had seen them push themselves beyond any reasonable limit to save a ship full of aliens they had never met. "I have studied many species," said. "I have read about human endurance and human persistence, but reading about something and witnessing it are different things. Your people worked for over 20 hours without rest. They continued working even when injured, even when cold, even when exhausted. Why?" Park considered the question carefully. Humans evolved on a difficult world. Survival was never guaranteed. We learned that giving up meant death. So we developed a culture that values persistence above almost everything else. When there is a job to do, we do it. When people need help, we help them. Stopping is not an option. "But you could have left us," said. "When the raiders came, you could have decided we were not worth fighting for. When the nebula collapsed early, you could have saved your own ship and let us die. No one would have blamed you." "We would have blamed ourselves," Park said simply. "That is the human way. We take responsibility for those who need us. Leaving you behind was never a consideration." Felt tears forming in her eyes again. For decades, her people had avoided humans. They had taught their children to fear the death. They had treated humans as dangerous animals to be kept at a distance. How wrong they had been. "Captain, when I return home, I will tell my government what happened here," she said. "I will tell them about the human ship that answered our distress call within hours. I will tell them about the engineers who worked without rest to fix our systems. I will tell them about the medic who saves life. I will tell them about the warriors who fought raiders to protect us, and then showed those same raiders mercy. I will tell them about the captain who pushed his ship to its limits, rather than leave strangers behind." She took a deep breath. "I will tell them that we were wrong about humanity. I will tell them that humans are not monsters. They are guardians. And perhaps it is time our people became friends instead of strangers." Park was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft with emotion. "Doctor, that is all we have ever wanted. Humans have much to offer the galaxy. Strength, yes, but also compassion, partnership, protection for those who need it. We do not want to be feared, we want to be trusted." He reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. It was a human gesture of connection, and did not pull away. "If your people are willing to give us a chance, we will prove worthy of that trust. I promise you." The repairs took several more hours. During that time, the crews of both ships worked together seamlessly, and humans side by side, sharing tools, sharing knowledge, sharing meals. Was well enough to walk now. She came to the bridge to thank Captain Park personally. The young stood before the human commander with tears in her eyes. "You saved my life," she said. "Medic cut me open and fixed what was broken inside me. She asked for nothing. She just helped because she could." Park smiled at her. "Is one of the best medics in our fleet. She has dedicated her life to healing others. She was happy to help you." "I want to learn," said suddenly. "I want to learn about humans, about your medicine, your culture, your history. Will you allow it?" "Of course. When you return home, you can apply for an exchange program. We have several with other species. We would be honored to include. As the final repairs were completed, the time came for the two ships to separate. The cables that had held them together were released. The Silent Wing's engines hummed to life, fully functional again. On the bridge, Doctor watched the Resolve through the main window. The human warship had saved them. It had fought for them. It had suffered alongside them. And now it was time to say goodbye. Captain Park, this is Doctor. We are ready to depart. Safe travels, Doctor. May your journey home be peaceful. Thank you, Captain, for everything. It was our honor. The Silent Wing turned toward space. Behind them, the Resolve remained stationary for a moment, a dark guardian against the stars. Then the human ship also turned and began to move away, continuing its patrol. Stood at a window, watching the human vessel disappear into the distance. He thought about everything he had learned in the past day, about endurance and compassion, about strength and mercy, about what it truly meant to be human. They are not what we thought they were, he said quietly. Commander stood beside him. No, they are something much more. Doctor joined them at the window. The Resolve was now just a tiny point of light among countless stars. When we drifted helpless in deep space, they answered our call, she said. They did not know us, they owed us nothing, but they came anyway, they fought for us, they bled for us, they pushed themselves beyond all limits to save us. She turned to face her crew. They were all listening, their faces filled with new understanding. That is what humans are, she continued. Not monsters, not death to be feared. They are the ones who answer when you call for help. They are the guardians of the galaxy who ask for nothing but the chance to protect those in need. The Silent Wing accelerated toward home, carrying 12 who would never see humanity the same way again. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the human warship Resolve continued its endless patrol, ready to answer the next distress call, ready to help the next species in need, ready to show the galaxy what it truly meant to be human. Gave the order. The ships connected with a heavy clang that echoed through the Silent Wing. The airlock opened, and the humans stepped aboard.